I came to return my ex's things. Her roommate opened the door and changed my life. There are moments in life that arrive so quietly you almost mistake them for ordinary days, only to realize later they changed everything. I thought I was simply carrying a cardboard box filled with the leftovers of a failed relationship, a faded gray blanket, a framed photograph from happier times, a few books she forgot, a coffee mug that somehow survived every move we made together. I believed I was delivering the final chapter of a love story that had already died, but when the apartment door slowly opened, it wasn't my ex standing there. It was someone whose tired smile carried a sadness strangely familiar to my own, and in the space of a few heartbeats, my carefully built walls began to crack. I had no idea that returning a box of forgotten memories would become the beginning of the most important journey of my life. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still has the power to heal broken hearts and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Shadow of Kindness. Your support helps these heartfelt stories reach people who may need them the most. 3 months earlier, I had watched my relationship collapse in slow motion. There was no dramatic betrayal, no screaming matches that shattered dishes or slammed doors. Instead, there was distance, endless silence, missed dinners, conversations that became shorter until they disappeared altogether. Love didn't explode. It simply faded like an old photograph left too long in the sunlight. When we finally admitted it was over, neither of us cried very much. Sometimes the deepest heartbreak comes when both people know they've already been grieving long before the goodbye is spoken. For weeks afterward, my apartment felt impossibly empty. Every room echoed with memories. I found myself reaching for my phone countless times before remembering there was no one waiting for my messages anymore. Friends encouraged me to go out, meet new people, and start over, but they didn't understand that healing doesn't happen because someone tells you to move on. Healing happens quietly, one ordinary day at a time, often when you least expect it. The box sat untouched near my front door for nearly a month. Every item inside carried its own memory, and every memory felt heavier than the object itself. Eventually, I realized keeping those things wasn't helping either of us. They belonged to a chapter that had already ended. Returning them felt like the final act of respect. The afternoon I drove across town, dark clouds hung overhead as if the sky itself couldn't decide whether to rain. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. I rehearsed possible conversations in my mind, hoping the exchange would be brief and painless. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I only wanted peace. The apartment building looked exactly the same cracked sidewalk, the same flower pots lining the entrance. Even the wind carried the familiar scent of jasmine growing along the fence. For a strange moment, it felt like stepping backward into another version of my life. I climbed the stairs, balancing the box carefully in my arms. My heartbeat grew louder with every step until I finally stood outside apartment 4B. I hesitated, staring at the door longer than I should have. Then I knocked. Footsteps approached. The door opened. It wasn't her. Standing there was a young woman wearing an oversized pink sweater that looked far too big for her. Her dark hair was loosely tied into a messy bun, and exhaustion rested beneath her eyes like she'd been carrying invisible weight for far too long. She looked surprised to see me, but not frightened. There was something calm about her presence that instantly softened the tension I had carried all day. She explained that my ex had moved to another city several weeks earlier for a new job. She had become the new roommate after taking over the lease. My ex had apparently forgotten to update me, or perhaps she simply assumed we'd never cross paths again. For a few awkward seconds, neither of us knew what to say. I looked down at the box, suddenly unsure what to do with years of memories that no longer had an owner waiting behind the door. She noticed my hesitation and gently offered to make sure everything reached my ex. I thanked her and carefully handed over the box. That should have been the end of the story. Instead, as she accepted the box, one corner gave way beneath the weight. The blanket slipped free, followed by the picture frame that shattered on the wooden floor between us. Instinctively, we both knelt to gather the broken glass. It was such a small accident, but sometimes life chooses unusual ways to slow people down. As we carefully picked up the scattered pieces, she quietly apologized even though none of it had been her fault. I laughed for the first time in weeks and told her accidents happen. That tiny shared smile somehow felt more genuine than many conversations I'd had over the past year. Before leaving, she surprised me by asking whether I wanted a cup of coffee since the rain had just started pouring outside. Normally, I would have declined. That afternoon, something told me to stay. The apartment looked different from how I remembered it. New curtains softened the windows. Fresh plants stood near the bookshelf. Warm yellow lights filled the rooms with gentle comfort. It no longer felt like a place haunted by old memories. It felt alive again. Her name was Emma. She spoke carefully, choosing words as though she'd learned that careless sentences could leave permanent scars. We talked about ordinary things first. Work, books, music, the weather. Then somehow the conversation drifted toward loneliness. She admitted she'd moved to the city after losing both her parents within 2 years. She'd spent months caring for them through illness before eventually finding herself completely alone. Starting over wasn't exciting for her. It was survival. Listening to her, I realized pain recognizes pain. Neither of us tried to impress the other. Neither of us pretended life was perfect. For the first time in months, I wasn't trying to hide the fact that I was hurting. Neither was she. When I finally left, the rain had stopped, but something inside me had quietly shifted. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about that unexpected afternoon. It wasn't romance. Not yet. It was something much simpler, hope. A few days later, I found an old,